We know that this government's hostile environment immigration policy is morally bankrupt. We know that because hundreds of British people who came here during the Windrush era were being rounded up, threatened, denied healthcare and even deported. The Home Secretary, Sajid Javid, vowed to do whatever it takes to put it right. Here's an idea, Home Secretary. Stop the callous, cruel deportations of British people that are still going on. You could start with Kwaku Adebole, who has lived here for 26 years since childhood. He was convicted of fraud, but served his sentence. For most British people, that would be enough. But like countless others from the Commonwealth, some of whom are married to British people and have British children, Kwaku is being punished a second time by being deported to Ghana, a country he simply doesn't know. We say we value our relationships with Commonwealth countries, but we still treat the British people who come from them as second-class citizens, banishing them the moment they make a mistake. This isn't just about them. This is about all of us and what kind of country we have become.
For context, and apologies if I mispronounce a couple of names here, but Kwaku Adebole was born in Ghana but left when he was 4 and has lived here since he was 12. He was jailed in 2012 after being found guilty of the UK's biggest fraud, costing his employer, UBS, £1.8 billion. He was released after serving half of his 7-year term. Adebole is now facing deportation, as you rightly say, back to Ghana and is waiting a judicial review. One other case centres on Hilary Inameo Marcus, who's facing a similar case. He came to the UK from Nigeria in 1995. He was 10. He's lived here ever since. He was granted leave to remain in the early 2000s, but the Home Office now wants to deport him because he was imprisoned in 2013 for a tax offence and served a custodial term of 15 months. Since leaving jail, he's become an ambassador for prison reform. That's background for the viewers. Afua, do you agree that rules are rules?
Well, I agree we've had rules that are morally unsustainable, and we've seen that from the government admitting that its rules are not in line with its values.
Are you the same Afua who took part at the start of the show in the debate about Russia with June? You are, I believe.
Yes.
Because I'll quote, and I wrote it down, "We live in a world that's run on a rules-based system."
Yes, and I'm arguing we should change the rules. I'm not saying we should violate the rules.
At the start of the show, we live in a world that's run on rules. By the end of the show, it doesn't, so these two folk can stay.
Completely consistent.
They broke the rules. And to put it alongside Windrush is terrible, terrible misrepresentation.
Yes. Nick,
these people, hold on.
Unfair.
I will yield. These people have committed crimes. No one in Windrush committed crimes. That was scandalous.
There were Windrush people who committed crimes. And are you saying that only the ones who didn't shouldn't have been deported?
The broad stroke is that simply because you came in Windrush, you weren't getting your papers. That was shameful.
So are you saying that the Windrush people only deserve to stay if they hadn't committed an offence?
No.
So what's the difference?
But to include this in Windrush is wholly and utterly misrepresentative.
The reason I put them together is because it's part of the hostile environment immigration policy.
If we have a criminal who has served, say, 10 years in prison for murder, or for rape, or for defiling a child, or a violent drug dealer who has killed children by selling drugs, do you honestly think that they shouldn't be deported? See, because I think they should be. Because, and I don't buy this argument that if they're sent back to dangerous countries, they're going to be in trouble. I don't care, because actually they're making this country a more dangerous place, and we've got plenty of dangerous criminals anyway. If being allowed to live in this country, the two instances you have mentioned, the first one, the 1.8 billion, yes. The second one, absolutely not. It was a small tax fraud. He was in prison for about 15 months and end. Absolutely not. But people, getting to live in this country is a privilege. If you come here and you know that the abuse of that privilege means you're going to be deported, well then, if you break the laws, if you hurt people, if you rape women, if you hurt children, you absolutely
I'm just really curious why you're bringing in rape and child abuse when this is about
because we're talking about criminals. No, we're talking about criminals.
We're talking about cases that have we're talking about cases that involve no risk to the public. No, well, that's what we are talking about. And Carol,
well, we can't just spend the whole debate talking about two cases.
The point is that they're British.
You brought in the whole of the Windrush generation.
The point is that they're British. They're not people who arrived yesterday. They arrived in childhood. They had permanent leave to remain. They were entitled to British citizenship. And the Home Office's own review of immigration policy has said it is deeply disturbing to deport people who are British.
The Windrush generation into this argument, not two people.
Interestingly, they were entitled to British citizenship. They did not take out
just
British
like many of the Windrush people who would have been entitled
So can
to
we
apply
just
for it.
quickly look at some statistics on deportations? According to Home Office statistics, 12,321 people were deported from the UK in 2017, of which 5,800 and 35 were foreign national offenders, i.e. foreign national offenders. But when the Home Office was asked about this, they said that, you know, you had to take each case on a case-by-case basis, and low-risk offenders should not necessarily be turfed out if they had lived here all their lives, into which category I think lots of these people must fall. And so I think Afua has a point. They did not know, aged 4, that if they committed a crime in the course of their lives, they would be thrown out of the country they considered their home.
You should be.
Can I add to the conversation? So, Afua, I completely agree with you, as you know. I signed the petition supporting Kwaku. I think the way he has been treated throughout this whole case is, and if we're honest, actually is completely unfair, because I don't believe that a junior trader could have made all of those trades without somebody signing off on it.
Let me. He was convicted.
Whatever. Let me know.
It's important to say as well that when he was convicted, he was acquitted on any counts of personal gain.
Right. There you go.
He said that it was out of a misplaced loyalty to
his company.
Yeah.
OK, all right, so you don't want to go there.
Well,
then the second piece is, this is part of, sadly, like you say, the hostile environment. This is part of this government trying to manipulate the immigration figures. Because what we are having is deportation buses waiting at prisons to take people home. The same is happening in America. And actually, it's about our values. It's about who we... It's about who we... Let me finish. It's about who we say we are. If we're saying somebody is a British citizen, if we're saying somebody is British and they have committed a crime...
No, but that's the whole point.
They're not.
Well, he was entitled to it. There are a lot of people who didn't process their paperwork. They were still entitled to it. They just didn't process their paperwork.
It says anyone sentenced to 4 years or more in jail, it is in the British public interest to have them deported. And that's fair, because if you're sentenced to 4 years for something, you've done something pretty bad.
But he's paid his debt to society.
No, yes, but if he's dangerous, my argument is if they're dangerous.
He's not dangerous.
You're talking about one person.
He's been found to have a low risk, and that's why he's on bail.
This person, the biggest ever fraud in this country.
Why are they not British nationals? Just exploring Rachel's point.
They're foreign-born and didn't take out
They
British
didn't process
citizenship.
their paperwork. There are a lot of people that didn't.
That's the Windrush issue. A lot of the people involved in Windrush could have applied.
No, a lot of them didn't actually do it. A lot of them didn't actually.
But that was because they had settled status, they had children here. It didn't occur to them that their Britishness would be called in question. There are lots of people who are British in all but paper, and that's why the Shore Review said it is deeply troubling to deport people here since childhood. Because Kwaku, taking him as an example, is a product of British education. He went to school and university here. He worked for a company here. He says that the reason he made this mistake, which he's owned up to, and now he works in schools as a reformer, as a whistleblower, trying to improve the system, was because of a misplaced pressure and loyalty to his institution. He is not regarded as a risk. He is somebody who's tried to improve the society, and he's now facing deportation to a country that he doesn't know. How is that in line with a country that has the kind of values we say we have?
People who have committed serious crimes.
But
I don't regard that one as a
sentences.
serious crime.
But
can I bring in a quote from Stephen Shaw, who is the former prisons ombudsman? And he said, "I find the policy of removing individuals brought up here from infancy to be deeply troubling. For low-risk offenders, it seems entirely disproportionate to tear them away from their lives, families and friends in the UK and to send them to countries where they may not speak the language or have any ties. The Home Office should no longer routinely seek to remove those who were born in the UK or have been brought up here from an early age." And a lot of them have been born here. That's the other thing. There are people who have been born here whose parents didn't process their paperwork.
June, let me read this Home Office statement, because it's important you having mentioned that now. All foreign nationals who are given a custodial sentence will be considered for removal, and any foreign criminal who is sentenced to 12 months or more imprisonment must automatically be subject to a deportation order under the UK Borders Act of 2007. Foreign nationals who abuse our hospitality by committing crimes in the UK should be in no doubt, says the Home Office, of our determination to deport them, and we have removed more than 44,500 foreign offenders since 2010.
But the point is, I think, casting someone who's been here since childhood as a foreign national abusing our hospitality. And I just want to read you a quote from Hilary Aneo Marcus, who's the other person we were mentioning, who's married here, his children here, has been here since he was 10. He says, the whole ordeal has been terrifying. I've been stressed out, anxious, deflated, edgy and depressed at the thought of being kicked out of a country I've known as home since my formative years. The person I am today is because of the environment I grew up in this country. The system is unfair because it does not take the individual's contributions to society into consideration. Just coming back to your point, Nick, about a rules-based system, which, as you know, as a former lawyer, I'm the first person to defend living under a rules-based system. The point is that the rules should have discretion to take in circumstances, individual cases. Otherwise, you end up with injustice. The two cases I've mentioned, and there are many more like them, are people who present little or no risk, who have served their sentence, who are trying to make this a better country now, having made a mistake, and have family, friends and deep ties here and nowhere else.
Others from going
and
down the
deporting
same
them
path.
is wrong. It's just wrong.
We've got to go. But before we do, there's just time for this. Now, even if you don't watch Strictly, you'd have struggled to miss the news this week that comedian Sean N. Walsh, one of the contestants, was caught kissing his dance partner, Katia Jones. Both Walsh and Jones were in long-term relationships with other people and both issued public apologies. But it was the response of Rebecca Humphreys, Walsh's girlfriend, that caught the eye of many people. She said, quote, "This whole business has served to remind me that I am a strong, capable person who is now free and no victim. I have a voice and will use it by saying this to any woman out there who deep down feels worthless and trapped with a man they love. Believe in yourself and your instincts. It's important also to recognise that in these situations, those who hold power over you are insecure and fragile, and the need for control comes from a place of vulnerability. Despite everything, I hope he, Sean with a double N, gets what he wants from this." But she says, "But I'm not sorry I took the cat." For that, Miss Humphreys, you are certainly our straight talker of the week. Discuss.
I remember when my very first living relationship broke up, talking about the cat, she took two things, the cooker and the bloodhound. It was a strange choice. I lost my bloodhound and the cooker.
I'd love to know what you did.
Had you been kissing other people?
I'm afraid I had. And I'm afraid I had, yes.